Welcome to your monthly market report. It is February of 2026. My name is Kate Rezebeck, and I'm thrilled to be here with you this month. We have a great topic in store for you today. We're going to go over how to show your clients affordability is improving. Now, we really went through a lot on the forecasts last month, and some of the things we were nodding to is how affordability has started to improve. And this is, really a big deal for your buyers right now. And I think what we're going to do today is we're going to dig in a little bit more and give you everything you need to know to be able to show your clients how the game is changing. So the visuals and the data and the real numbers, because real numbers don't lie, and they really create that aha moment for your clients. And, the reality is someone in your market is going to be telling the story about how affordability is starting to get better. And the real question is that going to be you? So I want to make sure you are armed with everything you need to have that conversation, to get ahead of your clients, to stay consistent, to be able to really share that story and show what this looks like, because it is changing the game right now. And I think this quote really resonates for me this morning as we get started. It's from John Maxwell. He's an author and leadership expert. And it says, you never really know something until you teach it to someone else. So I want you to think about that for a moment. There's so much you can absorb today here in the monthly market report, but the best thing you can do with that is go out and teach it. Teach it to your clients, teach it to the people that you interact with, have those conversations, be consistent, start to create that presence of being the expert. And the more you do that, the more impact you will have in your business, in your day-to-day life, in everything that you do. And so I encourage you to don't just stop here at watching the MMR this month, but get out and teach it, because that's really going to make a difference in your business in 2026. So with that as a backdrop, let's go ahead and dive right in. I want to start with this quote from Nadia Evangelo from NAR. And she says, for the last few years, we have been in one of the toughest affordability environments in modern housing history. Mortgage rates jumped from 3% in 2021 to above 7% in 2023. And that pushed the typical payment up by more than $1,000 a month compared to pre-pandemic levels. Now, that's really a big deal. We've all felt this in the housing market, and it certainly is one of the biggest factors on why the market has slowed. But here's what I want to share with you today. This is from Mark Fleming at First American, and it's the good news. He says the forces that eroded affordability in the aftermath of the pandemic, strong price appreciation and surging mortgage rates, have stabilized. Moderating house price growth, easing mortgage rates, and steady income gains signal a realignment in the forces driving affordability trends. So that is great news for where we are starting the year right here, what we're starting to see. And, affordability, let me remind you, he talks about it here, but let's break it down. It's a combination of three different things. It's rates, prices, and wages. We talk about that a lot at KCM, and I think a lot of people get laser focused, especially where we are right now with rates as, the driver of affordability. It's certainly a really big factor, but there's other things at play, prices and wages. So we're going to break all those down for you today and make sure you have everything you need to be consistent, to get out there and talk with your clients about how this is improving and what it means for your buyers, because this could be the game changer. And I'm excited to share all this with you. So let's take a look at the affordability index from NAR. Affordability really improved in the second half of 2025. And that's exactly what you can see here. Right about June of last year, affordability started getting better and better and better. And that's what you see as you see this line rising. Really, the higher the line goes, the more affordable homes are. So that's definitely been a plus for the market. Now, we are not out of the woods. Homes are not magically affordable again, but we're definitely seeing a trend moving in the right direction, with rates coming down, with prices cooling, with wages increasing. All of those different factors are at play. In fact, Zillow says at the national level, a mortgage payment now takes 32.6% of median household income. Already the best affordability seen nationwide since August of 2022. That's a big deal. And that's on track to improve to 31.8% by the end of the year. So let me show you what that looks like, because this is really interesting. This is a little bit of a different affordability index look, and this one's from Zillow. And basically it says buying a home is taking less of your income right now. This is the share of income the median household would spend on a newly purchased home. And basically what it means is if someone has to spend more than 30% of their income on a home, it's not as affordable. Now, less than 30%, that's considered affordable according to this index. And when you look at this, what do you see? You know, going all the way back to January of 2012 is this graph. Homes were much more affordable. And then there was this big spike up a few years ago. And that really kind of peaked around the end of 2023 when home affordability really kind of eroded. We saw prices were higher. We saw mortgage rates that were higher. There was all these different factors at play. But the trend we're seeing now, and this is the good news, is that affordability is starting to get better. That line is coming down. It's getting closer to 30% of someone's income to buy a home. And, you know, moving in the right direction, that's the trend we really, really want to see. And we really want to be communicating because a lot of people think it's still out of the question. But the game is starting to change. And, you know, the one question that we get a lot when we share this graphic is, well, but what about taxes and insurance and all the maintenance? Like all of that makes it really expensive to own a home. This actually includes all of that. So that's why it's at 30% threshold for being able to call a home more affordable. So this is a really great visual. I would definitely be sharing this. And here's something else that's really cool that I want you to see, because this is changing throughout the country, differently in different places. But these are the 20 major markets where home ownership is expected to be affordable by the end of this year. And so this lists out the major metros that should be under that 30% threshold by the time we get to the end of 2026. So this is factoring in all those forecasts we've been talking about, what's happening with inventory and prices and rates and all of those different things. But what we're seeing is in places like Atlanta, Chicago, Raleigh, where maybe it was a little bit tighter to be able to afford a home, starting to get better, expected to be under that 30% threshold by the end of this year. And of course, we've got, you know, on the other end, Birmingham, Pittsburgh, a couple of those places that are probably already under that mark. So we're definitely seeing progress, and this is great information to share. And it's important to be the local expert for your market. So if your market's not on the list, you know, really dig into what's happening locally to be able to explain this story and how this applies to the clients that you serve. And here's another really good one that the KCM research team, who does a phenomenal job at finding all of these golden nuggets, shared with me just today. This says affordability is returning to the market. And this graph shows the share of counties where it's more affordable to buy than rent a 3-bedroom home. And so if you look at places like the Midwest, this shows that 81.5% of the counties in the Midwest, it's more affordable to buy than rent. That's a really big deal. It's about 66% in the South, and of course, a little bit tighter in the Northeast and the West. Not unexpected when you think about the difference in regional trends and what's happening right now. But this is a really, really big deal. You've got people who want to buy, who have been priced out, who have been renting for a really long time. You know, these are the kind of things that you can show them to say, look, it's getting better. Let's set a plan. Let's talk about how to get you there. It might not be today, but let's talk about what that could look like. And that's where showing up consistently and sharing this information and teaching it and being out there and truly being the expert is really going to make a difference, both for you and your clients. So let's go ahead and look at this quote from Zillow. It says, "This is what a small wins year looks like for housing. Rising incomes, subdued price growth, and gradually easing mortgage rates would help buyers regain their footing while allowing homeowners to continue building wealth. These types of slow and steady affordability improvements are exactly what the housing market needs over the long run." So getting better, we're starting to see some of these small wins come together. They add up for sure. Now, I want to dig in a little bit more into those three key factors of affordability. We've kind of set the stage that it's improving, but these are the reasons you need to show your clients why. And one of the biggest ones is, number one, mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are near their lowest level in 3 years. This is mortgage rates going all the way back to September of 2022. And you can see that volatility we've been talking about for the past few years. Well, when you look at this graph, you can see where we are over January 2026. This is the first week of February that we are recording this, but mortgage rates have really hit that almost lowest point that we've seen in quite some time. And that is really, really important. I would absolutely be sharing this with someone who is still thinking, I can't afford a home. Because if they're thinking about some of the numbers that they saw maybe a couple years ago, if you sat down and had that conversation, it's time to reopen the conversation. It's time to rerun those numbers. Because a couple of years ago, we were up around, 7.5%, 8% mortgage rates. We're not there anymore. And prices have cooled and all of these different things are at play. So really important to be sharing this, showing the visuals and talking about what's different now. National Association of Home Builders says even slight declines can have a significant impact on housing affordability, pricing more households back into the market. That's exactly what we're talking about. This is why your clients need to know what's different. And I want to walk you through this next slide because I think it's really the game changer. This is where the numbers truly come alive, and I would 100% be sharing this one. So, what did we just establish? In just 1 year, rates are down a full percentage point. We saw that graph, how rates have come down. It is a full percentage point difference from January of last year to where we are in the beginning of February this year. And if you do the math, and we've used a $500,000 loan as an example for this one, but you could double it if you want to do the math for $1 million loan, whatever that may be, you can play with the numbers here. But the savings per month on a mortgage payment, mortgage P&I, is about $350 compared to this time last year. So if someone hasn't sat down and said, what does this really mean? If mortgage rates are coming down, where prices are today, what does this look like for me? This is the kind of math you want to show them. But let me tell you, a lot of people are thinking, well, that's good, but maybe I should wait for rates to go below 6%. Now, there's a lot of things that happen when rates start to move below 6%. First of all, there's a mindset shift. So a lot of people are thinking, if they go lower, I'll just wait it out and then I'll jump back into the market. But what happens then is more people are coming into the market. You know the story. It starts to put upward pressure on prices, especially in those markets where inventory is still pretty tight. So people are waiting for a savings that might actually push prices higher. That's just kind of how supply and demand works. But what's happening now is that sellers are willing to negotiate. There's less competition. They're already saving, call it $350 a month compared to this time last year, but they're waiting for something just a little bit lower. And let me show you what that math looks like. Waiting for 5.99% actually is only a difference of about $67 a month compared to where we are right now. So when you show your clients that math, hey, we're around 6.2 in the beginning of February, you want to wait for below 6%. The question you really need to be asking them is, would you let $67 stop you from buying a home? That's the bottom line, $67. People think it's a lot more than that. But on this $500,000 loan example, it's just $67,000 a month, or $67 a month. So that's the question you need to be asking when you sit down and have these conversations, when you show them the difference. Because the game changes when the spring market hits, when more people decide to jump back in. I don't think it's going to be a flood of buyers jumping back in, but it's certainly going to ratchet up the competition. We tend to see prices being a little bit lower, sellers a little bit more willing to negotiate at this time of year before there are more buyers in the typical spring season. So I would absolutely 100% be sharing this graphic. We have social graphics in our KCM member area where you can go and grab the social friendly versions of this. You can download this slide from the monthly market report. You can change the math. all kinds of different ways to use KCM to be out there, to be consistent, to have these conversations. And as always, when you show what's actually happening, when you can explain it, when you can really teach what the difference is, that's where it changes the game. All right, so National Mortgage Professional says housing affordability continued to improve, reaching its strongest level in more than 3 years, as cooling home price growth and easing mortgage rates provided incremental relief to buyers. So we've talked a lot about how mortgage rates have come down, but we're seeing this relief on the price side too. Remember, that's the second part, the second component of affordability. So what does that look like? This is year-over-year price growth, and it goes all the way back to 2013. And what you can see over there on the right is that home prices are still growing. They're above that zero baseline on this graph, but they're not growing at that exponential rate that we saw in 21, 22. You can see where that is much higher. So the growth is still there. That's healthy, positive growth for home prices, not exponential, not out of control. But as home price growth has moderated or has cooled, as we often say, that's really a benefit to your buyers. And it's one of the other things that's helping homes get more affordable. Now, this is going to vary by market. You know this. So it's really important to understand exactly how this is playing out in your local area. But here's something I would remind you as you're looking at this data. Remember that even if prices are still going up in your market, and in many markets they are, nationally they are, the rate of appreciation is slower than it has been. It's not that exponential, unhealthy rate. It's getting back to normal in some markets. It's growth below normal in some. It's declines in others. But all of those different factors are helping homes become more affordable. So still positive, will vary by market. Odetta Cushy from First American says, affordability is improving, and that matters even if mortgage rates don't fall much from here. House price appreciation has dipped below the pace of income growth since April of 2025, which is slowly improving the monthly payment math for would-be buyers and helping more households qualify at the margin. So we've talked a little bit about home price appreciation. We've talked about mortgage rates. All of those different factors are improving affordability. But that third thing that she's getting at here is wages as well. So let's take a look at that. This shows that wages are growing faster than home prices in 2026. Now, this is a really big deal because this means on average, nationally, people's incomes are going up faster than home price appreciation. Now, again, that's going to vary by market and a lot of other factors, but in general, we're seeing wages growing. So as mortgage rates come down, as prices cool, and as wages grow, all three things really important for improving affordability. And when we start to put all these together, at the end of the day, people want to know, what does this mean for my monthly payment? We talked a little bit about the math that I would absolutely be sharing, but what we can see is that monthly mortgage payments are trending down. This goes back to May of last year. And as we've seen mortgage rates start to come down, as we've seen prices moderate, we're seeing a typical monthly mortgage payment also come down as well. In fact, I saw a stat from Zillow the other day that said the monthly payment on a typical home is now 8.4% lower than a year ago, primarily due to mortgage rates easing. But I think that's really important for you to be sharing with your clients and talking about and getting that information out there consistently. All right, Nadia Evangelo from NAR also says, nationally, a 1 percentage point drop in mortgage rates can expand the pool of households who can qualify to buy by about 5.5 million households, including about 1.6 million renters who could become first-time buyers. That's a huge shift in who can realistically afford to buy. Now, when this quote came out, she was talking about when mortgage rates move from where they were at about 7% down to about 6%, that's going to bring potential buyers, 5.5 million households, back into the market. So where are we now? We've almost hit that spot. We've dipped into the fives this year already. We're expected to stay in this range, in this kind of low sixes area for the year. So that's a really big deal. That means a lot of those buyers are now able to qualify. And she went on to say, not all of those 5.5 million households will buy a home, but based on our analysis, about 10% typically do. That could translate into about 500,000 additional home sales in 2026. That's the main reason that we expect home sales activity to increase next year. So really big deal. We anticipate sales will increase this year. We anticipate buyer activity will continue to ramp up. I don't think it's going to be, a flood of activity by any means, but we're definitely going to see more people stepping into the market. We're already seeing that in the beginning of this year. So really, really important that we not only talk about affordability, but we talk about what does this mean for buyer demand? Because as affordability improves, buyer demand is responding. So I want to walk you through a little bit of what the historical context tells us, what's happening now, and what we can expect going forward. So let's take a look. Rick Sharga says, we're in an incredibly rate-sensitive environment today. And every time we've seen mortgage rates drop into the low to mid 6% range, we've seen an influx of buyers hit the market. So let me show you what, if you graph this out over the past few years, what he's actually talking about. So this shows that when rates drop, buyer activity picks up. So the blue line that you see here going all the way back to 2019, that's mortgage rates. You can see when mortgage rates came way down, purchase applications or the purchase index, the green line, went way up. We all felt that. We saw a lot of people starting to buy homes in 2020, 21. We remember how that frenzy kind of played out. But then there was this moment where mortgage rates started to go up. And what did that do? That impacted buyer demand. Buyer demand started to come down. You can see where those lines kind of cross and the trend becomes the opposite. Mortgage rates go up, purchase index comes down. That's exactly what we are feeling now. Well, it was what we were feeling. But what are we seeing now? We're seeing the purchase index start to tick up. Over the past year, we've seen mortgage rates easing, more people jumping into the market. So if we look at historically what's happened, we can anticipate that this should continue. Mortgage rates, coming down has really been a positive thing for the housing market. Now, let me show you a little bit more about what's happened over the past 5 years. Buyer demand responds to mortgage rate changes. We went back, our amazing research team went back and put this data together, and they looked for those moments over the past 5 years when mortgage rates changed meaningfully. Sometimes it was like 0.3 to 0.5. Sometimes it was, a little bit more like 2 percentage points or more. But what they found is this exact correlation. When mortgage rates came down, the purchase index went up. If you look at that second line, February of 22 to October of 22, that's when we saw mortgage rates make that historical climb. That's when we saw buyer demand increase the most or decrease the most. We saw it come way down by over 40%. So we know that we are in this rate sensitive era. That's what we have seen happen and it's continuing to happen. So what can we expect going forward? Sam Cater from Freddie Mac says, with the economy improving and the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage nearly a percentage point lower than last year, more home buyers are entering the market. We've felt that for sure, no doubt, and it's something that we expect to continue. When you look at buyer demand, this again is the mortgage purchase index. Those green lines, you can see when they were much higher coming into 2023. So that was kind of coming out of that pandemic era, that was sort of the peak of when home buying was really in motion. Then we saw it ease. You can see where those green lines start to soften out over 2024 or so. And then what do we see as the trend that's been happening more recently? We see that coming back up. Now, there's some ebbs and flows. There's some seasonality where some of these lines go down a little bit and come back up. But in general, the trend is positive as we go into 2026. And that's a really, really good thing. It's everything we've been talking about: lower rates, better affordability, more homes in the market, all of those different things. So let's take a look at this quote from Selma Hepp at Cotality. She says, "While price growth hit a 14-year low in late 2025, Cotality experts anticipate 2026 will bring a fresh wave of activity, especially if mortgage rates continue to ease." So again, fresh wave of activity, really, really good thing. More buyer demand, not a flood or a rush or anything like that, but certainly the right direction. We're going to see more people jump in. And your job is to get out there and talk about this. Get out there and talk about the opportunity. Show the numbers, show the data, show the math, explain why. Because the more you do that, the more transactions will be yours in 2026. And what I would remind you of, we talked about this in the beginning, is someone in your market is going to tell this story. Someone is going to go out there and show the math and show how this is all playing out. The question is, will it be you? So we're going to wrap today with this quote from Mark Fleming from First American. It says, "Affordability remains challenging, but for the first time in several years, the underlying forces are finally aligned toward gradual improvement. Mortgage rates may drift down only slowly, but income growth exceeding house price appreciation will provide a boost to house buying power, even in a higher rate world. Affordability won't snap back overnight." This is my favorite part. "But like a ship finally catching a steady tailwind, it's now sailing in the right direction." And that's exactly what we're looking for. It's what your clients need to hear. It's what you need to be talking about, what you need to be sharing, and showing up consistently, getting this message out there. Now, as we wrap today, let's remember why we do this every month, because most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening, but it's only the great agents that can explain what's happening. So get out there, tell the story, keep telling it, be consistent, and we will see you right back here next month. Thank you so much.